Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It will now be the turn of Honorable Mahama Ayariga.
Thank you very much, Felix. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've come very far from your days as my deputy at the Ministry of Information. Essentially, you are becoming the Minister of Information. Well done.
Thank you.
President John Dramani Mahama is setting up government. Do you have a sense of the appointments made so far?
Yes, thank you very much. And I must indicate that it was a real pleasure working with you as my boss at the Information Ministry. You gave me opportunities that have led to my growth, and I'm eternally grateful for that. I think that for some reason, the lot has fallen on me to announce most of the president's nominations. And as I have listened to him and engaged him and looked at the various lists that he has given me, I see a clear pattern. What is clear is that the president is determined to ensure the right balance in his government. He is determined to ensure that there is a generational mix. So you find that there are very experienced hands that he has appointed. And then there are also young techs who, despite their relative youth, have shown capacity to deliver in their previous fields of endeavor. And by and large, the president's nominations have been well received. The president has also ensured that the age-old criticism leveled against Ghanaian governments over limited roles for females is addressed. In fact, only yesterday, he swore in 14 new ministers. And he indicated in his speech that if you look at the office of the president, so far, apart from the fact that he has made substantial cuts to the numbers there is quite some equitable representation of both genders. He's made 27 appointments to the office of the president as we speak. That is including the office of the vice president. Out of that number, 13 are women. That represents 48%. It is the highest number we've had at the presidency. As of last week, if you look at the appointments that he had made, 27% of them, that is in terms of ministerial appointments, appointments to committees or commissions, CEOs of state organizations, and other such appointments, there was 27% representation of women. And he has indicated that so far he has made 42 ministerial appointments. There are 18 more to go if you look at the specific promise that he made to appoint 60 ministers, and that he will use the opportunity of appointing those 18 to, as it were, tilt the scale in favor of women. And he has made that commitment clear. But this is a man who showed clear intent at the very onset when he nominated a woman to serve as his running mate. And for that reason, Ghana has its first ever female vice president. In fact, at the office of the vice president, out of a staff strength of 10, 6 are women. That is 60% women work within the outfits of the vice president. If you look at the list of appointments, every single region in Ghana is represented in government. Beyond that, he has been careful to ensure that a substantial number of people who belong to the National Democratic Congress, who subscribe to the social democratic ideology, who subscribe to the vision that he sold to the people of Ghana, find their way into government. At the same time, he has also appointed people with technocratic background who are not necessarily NDC. If you look at the Constitution Review Commission, for instance, almost all of them are people who are well known in civil society, academia, or other such fields, who are not necessarily NDC. Indeed, I dare say that some of them were fierce critics of President Mahama in his previous guise as president between 2013 and 2017. But the president has had no difficulty appointing them. In the last few days, other appointments have been made which reflect a certain thinking, that it is not only hardcore members of the NDC who are going to be part of the government, but to the extent that he identifies specific talent and capacity in individuals who may not necessarily be partisan, he is willing to give them opportunity. He has even gone Further, to ensure ethnic balance in his government, there is Zongo representation in his government. It could have been argued that it was sufficient to remain at regional or even ethnic level. But he has gone down further to appoint people from certain communities in order to indicate that he is one who is willing to work with all. So I would say that so far, the appointments have been impressive. And if the trend is anything to go by, we are going to have perhaps Ghana's most representative government ever, in addition to the fact that it will be the leanest conduct. Yesterday, he sent out a strong message that no member of his government will be permitted to engage in any form of small-scale mining. So forget about whether it is illegal or legal. No member of his government is permitted to engage in small-scale mining. He has cautioned us strongly that he will not countenance disrespect and arrogance and misconduct, and that we should always bear in mind that it is the Ghanaian people who employ us. He has indicated that modesty and prudence must be the watchword for every appointee. There are other restrictions that he has placed that he hasn't made public yet, but I'm sure when you find out, you will be pleasantly surprised. He intends to crack the whip and rein in deviant elements who may pop up within his government, for the sole reason that he believes that the mandates of the people of Ghana must be respected. It is not that we in the NDC are exceptional human beings, or we have extraordinary knowledge or expertise. It is just that the people of Ghana thought that the vision we sold found favor with them, and that they did not think that in the last 8 years, the country has been governed properly. So the mandate has fallen on us. President Mahama does not intend to abuse it. He intends to use it judiciously to address the most pressing concerns of Ghanaians, so that in the end, some significant progress would have been made by the time that his 4-year mandate comes to an end. So he does not regret making that point. There are more stringent commitments that in the fullness of time he will roll out to show that he meant what he told the people of Ghana. Because he is also wary of politicians making vacuous promises. He is fully aware that at a point, the Ghanaian electorate had lost confidence in we politicians because of what they perceive to be deceptive politicking over the years. He wants to lay down the marker that there are yet conscientious and scrupulous politicians around. And these are people who will keep their word to every extent possible. Thank you very much.
So, in your role, will you have an attitude of defending everything that is NDC and government, or you'll be capable of being independent-minded, fair, and acknowledge mistakes when they occur, whilst you also defend the rightful position of government in certain matters?
Thank you very much. Having been my boss in the past at the Information Ministry, I'm sure you are aware of that wall that has so many photographs of past information ministers displayed on it. It is a constant reminder that that position is essentially a revolving door, and that people go in and out of it. One of the reasons for that is that in this position, if you are not careful to conduct yourself in a manner that elicits the belief and confidence of the people, you are unlikely to do your government any good. So it is necessary that in this role, I be as honest and as principled as possible. I have a duty to sell the president's vision, explain the position of government on various matters. One can do that without necessarily being dishonest and untruthful and just towing party lines. Fortunately, I happen to work for a man who has demonstrated through his actions that he is not overtly partisan, despite being a bona fide NDC member and having gone through the mill. He still has the capacity to do what is right. There have been agitations by NDC members, some well-meaning, because they want the government to succeed, They don't want people who they perceive to be suspicious characters to find their way into government. And they have protested. Some have gone a bit overboard. But the president has stood his ground and insisted that in some agencies, some technocratic capacity is needed. He has not flinched. Even as he has given opportunity to an overwhelming number of NDC people, he has also been willing to tap people from outside the NDC. But he has not gone back on those actions simply because people within his party have protested. Again, he has a track record of taking punitive action against members of his own government. People you can describe as his close friends. He has taken punitive action against them. So it makes my job a lot easier. I'm not going to have to defend the indefensible because I trust the man I work for to, and indeed if you read his inauguration address, there's a line in there that perhaps we lost sight of, but which is profound. He said that as president, he will exercise sound judgment and make the right course at the right time. That simply means that he is prepared to do good by the people of Ghana. There's a man who has seen it all. And perhaps you would have thought would walk into the sunset, having given decades of service to the people of Ghana. But he has thrown his heart into the ring and has come back. He is on a mission to sanitize governance and ensure that government is run in a way that meets the aspirations of the people. Personally, I'm also a conviction politician. When I take positions, I consider them carefully. So once I take them, unless I'm shown verifiable evidence that I'm wrong, I stick to it. And often, it may rankle a few people. It may rub off negatively or wrongly on some people. But to the extent that I believe that it is the right thing to do, I will stick to it. There are times when I have publicly voiced opposition to what have been done by the NDC. Sometimes it faces backlash. But I believe that we all have to learn to put principle above everything. At the end of the day, what binds us is our collective desire to see Ghana progress. We should be bold enough to point out when things go wrong. Only last week I was on TV and I made it clear that I believe that all of us have to serve with a clean heart. We have to do good by the people of Ghana. We only are fortunate that amongst the millions of Ghanaians, we are the few who have been chosen to serve. It is a position of service. It is not one in which we are supposed to lord it over the people and show superiority of intellect or of knowledge of whatever it is that we think we have. But we have to be humble whilst remaining principled. So yes, I'm not going to be an outlet for churning out disinformation or misinformation to deceive the people.
In the last 1 week, you've been responding to questions relating to the president's use of private jet belonging to his brother's company. Can you give us some background to that and the reason why the president used his brother's private jet?
Thank you very much. I think it's an important opportunity to clarify this matter. What it is that in the past, the concerns that the people of Ghana have had in relation to presidential travel are costs and propriety. Cost in terms of how much it is costing the state and whether or not there are cheaper alternatives. And then propriety in terms of the decision itself to choose a certain means of travel. These have been the two issues. President Mahama has been concerned about both. In opposition, we criticized President Akufo-Addo's lavish display, where he rented an aircraft costing millions of Ghana cedis to the taxpayer. As Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, when he became president, one of the first things he did was to ask about the status of the Armed Forces. In the Air Force, there's a unit called the Communications Squadron, which handles presidential aircraft, led by the Air Force Commander himself. The president asked them for an update on the status of the presidential aircraft because one of the ways that the MPP sought to defend what we deemed to be waste of taxpayers' money on rentals of expensive jets was that the presidential aircraft was not in good shape. I think it is fair that on assumption of office, the president seeks to find out the state of the aircraft. In the last week or so, he has received an update. And that is why in the recent travel to Angola, Tanzania, and Kenya, he used a presidential aircraft. I happen to have been on it. I can tell you that it is in pristine condition, and it is okay. Once President Mahama knows that it is okay, he will do so. But before then, the option left to him would have been to either rent a replacement aircraft or fly commercial. Both alternatives were going to cost us money. He decided that in the very recent past, during his campaign, his brother happened to have 2 aircrafts, which he made available to him to the extent that he needed to travel. He has been using it. So using it for a week more at no cost to the taxpayer was the best option out of the 3 that he had. And I, as a taxpayer, take me out of the equation as a member of this government. As a taxpayer, I would have no concern if the president makes a choice that costs me nothing, especially when we know the source of the aircraft and its record. Now, let me put it on record that President Mahama is not one who is given to flamboyance and ostentation. I've had the distinct pleasure of traveling with him a couple of times. There was a day that we were supposed to join a commercial aircraft.
So can I?
If you make me, yes, just 1 minute. He was willing to go onto that aircraft that had only 2 seats left without any of his aides, he and his wife. We had to meet up with him later. Another president would have insisted that because we were not finding space, he will rent an aircraft. I have also been with him in an aircraft that had only economy seats from Frankfurt to Accra. He sat in it as president without complaining. So he is not someone, he could have, as President Akufo-Addo did, rented expensive aircraft to ensure his comfort. But he chose to fly economy because that is what was available. So this is a man who will not waste taxpayers' money only so that his creature comfort is met. So I can assure the people of Ghana that once it has been certified and we have felt it, that the presidential aircraft is in good shape, this debate will be over. He will use it every single time that he has to travel, unless, of course, some circumstance makes it impossible. Even then, he will choose the cheapest option available to the extent that it is safe and can take him to wherever he has to go.
The use of the aircraft belonging to his brother, will the office of the president treat it as a gift to the office of the president, or will it be recorded as a gift to John Mahama himself, President Mahama himself?
In the immediate aftermath of the transition, there were many, many things that were not in place for presidential. For instance, we are supposed to work at the office of the president, but for the first few days, we had to basically hang around because the place was not in the best of shapes. The president didn't mind. He operated from his private office in Cantonments. In fact, on the first, second, and third days, he had to sit in some crucial meetings to take important decisions relating to sustainable power supply, relating to resolving challenges with feeding school children and what have you. He had to hold meetings at the Accra International Conference Center, pending some security sweep at the Flagstaff House and what have you. In that period, it became necessary to make some of these adjustments. Rather than go and rent an aircraft that will cost us or go commercial that will cost us, he decided to use the same means that he had been traveling with. Again, mind you, these aircraft belong to his brother, who has a long-standing reputation as one of Ghana's most prominent businessmen. He didn't become who he is because his brother was president. So it's not as though overnight his brother has come into some wealth and he is trying to use his aircraft. Again, if it were the case that President Mahama rented his brother's aircraft at state expense, then perhaps there could be an issue. At this stage, I think that in view of the lapses in the transition and some of the shortfalls in our arrangements, the arrangement he made was the best in terms of protecting the public purse. It was never intended to be a permanent solution to anything. It was a stopgap measure that was to fill in for the difficulty that existed at the time. But as I speak to you, it has been rectified, and there will be no problems going forward.
I perfectly understand that. I haven't adverted my mind to our policy on gifts. That's why I asked you, will it be treated in the records of the presidency as a gift? because I think that there's something that has been gifted to the government of Ghana, because we received somebody's aircraft to use it for official trip, and we haven't paid for it. So in effect, it's a gift. Is it a gift to John Mahama, or is it a gift to the office of the president? In which case, legally, they receive different treatments. If it's a gift to John Mahama, President John Mahama, as a person, it has different tax implications. If it's a gift to the office of the president, it has different tax implications. So how will you treat what has happened
I think that
going forward in the future, working at the office of the president?
Well, I would have to receive specific briefing on how to, but I'm certain, beyond any doubt, that whatever obligations arise out of any classification that is given to it will be met by the president. I don't think he has any difficulty at all doing that. But it is safe to say that it was the most viable option at the time. To the extent that the aircraft was safe and did not endanger him in any way. It didn't cost us anything. I, as a Ghanaian, would prefer that arrangement to what President Akufo-Addo was doing, to be fair. But as for the classification, I'm sure that the president has a legal counsel, so I'm sure that she can help in determining the classification. But if it is classified and any obligation arises, the president will have no difficulty meeting it, knowing the kind of person that he is.
So, if you listen to Ghanaians who spoke extensively about the matter, one of the things that, or an undertone, was a question of improper influence. Is that okay? That will, providing such a facility to the president, position the brother of the president in such a way that he would have improper influence over the president.
Well, thank you very much. I think that President Mahama's track record is pretty clear. His brother's track record is also quite clear. As I indicated in the earlier answer, this is a man who has established, indeed, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Ibrahim Mahama had been a prominent businessman for over a decade and a half before his brother became president, even in his previous guys in 2013 and 2016. He's a well-known businessman. There's a man who owns cement factories and all that on his own volition, without having to rely on government. I do not think that the mere fact that he has assisted his brother with travel, and I must point out that this is an aircraft that the president has been using since his days in opposition. Immediately he was elected, he had not been sworn in, so he had not become president. He made some trips to some African countries. It was the same aircraft that he used. So he only borrowed it for 1 more week, if you like, to use for his travels. I do not think that merely on account of that, Mr. Ibrahim Mahama will wield some overbearing influence on his brother. If there's any influence, the mere fact of being his brother would suffice. He doesn't need to go over and above. And President Mahama is not one given to nepotism, at least of the sort that we saw under President Akufo-Addo. He has not been minded to appoint relatives en masse. I don't think he will ever do that. He was president for a long time, and he didn't do that. He's not going to start doing that. So the people of Ghana can have the firmest of assurances that nepotism will not find its way into President Mahama's government. He only means to improve the lot of the average Ghanaian, improve our institutions, and ensure that governance itself is reformed. And he has set in motion the processes to do that. But as I indicated, any obligation that arises out of using that aircraft will be met. But no influence whatsoever can be peddled on the back of this particular arrangement.